prospector's nose for gold, the sailor who can read the sky, the gambler's sense of when to fold the trick to making apple pie. These mysteries one cannot explain. This old black art so queer and quaint, like making love or making rain. Either you got it or you ain't. Some cats know, you can tell by touching. They don't come on a huffing and a puffing and a grabbing and a clutching. Some cats know how to take it nice and slow. But if a cat don't know, a cat don't know. Some cats know how to stir up the feeling. They keep fooling around till you're halfway to the ceiling. And some cats know how to make the honey flow. But if a cat don't know, the cats don't know. Some cats know just where it's at. They're not like some others. I would brother one just like that. If I had my brothers. And some cats know how to play nice and pretty, nice and soft, and soon you're off to good time city. Some cats know how to take it nice and slow. But if a cat don't know, well, the cat don't know. Some cats know, those cats know to play it nice and pretty, nice and soft, and soon you're off to good time city. Some cats know how to take it nice and slow. But if a cat don't know, a cat don't know. It just don't know.
Very cute. This is my guest, Mary Foster Conklin. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm good.
For some reason, my let me just do one thing here, because Claudia Koval would like to come on, but for some reason she's not able to get there, and I'm not sure why. It's just everybody's on now, including us. So my guest, she and I have known each other a long time, but not super well, I would say, but still we've known each other a long time. And I'm really happy to do this show with you. And how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's been kind of a quiet day, which is always a good thing.
You think so?
So I was thinking also how much I miss Los Angeles, that it's just been too long since I've been there. And, I hear from you guys a lot, and there are a lot of people from LA that listen to the radio show and stuff, and they're incredibly supportive. But I miss traveling so much. I really do. Yeah. And I of the long list of things that I miss, but I'm so overdue a trip to LA, and I cannot wait to come.
We were talking about the Jazz Congress before, and I heard it's in Houston or Dallas.
That's the Jazz Education Network. I thought that's in Texas.
Oh, I thought somebody had told me. Oh, maybe they were talking about that. Okay, because I was surprised. That's probably what it is. Yeah, there's two things that happen usually in January for those of you listening. Jazz Educators Network, which used to be the IAJE, and then one of the executive directors absconded with the money, but it didn't take them very long to come back, and so that's now Jen, and they do it in January. It's basically like a convention, and it's great. It's wonderful, especially if you're a jazz educator or a student. And then the Jazz Congress, which used to be, what was it?
Jazz Connect, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Which was that was more the offshoot of radio and labels, and less emphasis on jazz education.
Right.
And that took up residence at St. Peter's Church, which in New York is called the Jazz Church. And then there was a merge with Jazz at Lincoln Center, which brought it to a much larger venue. And I think both are good. They have different focuses. A lot of people do both when they can. Yeah.
And it's kind of basically it's really geared towards jazz reviewers, but people like us go and, schmooze and have fun. And there's another thing that happens that I've been to in San Jose, which is geared towards the jazz
radio.
And that's actually fun too. And it's much smaller, but fun and informative. And again, it's about the community, a lot, right? Yeah. So Mary Foster Conklin, I don't know anything about your history. And although I have looked at your bio, but still, so how did you enter into this lifestyle?
I came to New York as an actor, and in my 20s had a little nonprofit theater company with 6 other actors, and we quickly burned out in about 3 years. We got one grant, and it's interesting though, because our focus was non-traditional casting. Oh. And this was back in the 80s. So it was very, very exciting. And some of our actors have gone on to become directors and playwrights. And Terrence Spivey was the head of the oldest Black theater company in America, in Ohio. The ones that I know that I still followed have really impressed me with what they do. And
Yeah.
anyway, but I was also a singer, but not a musical theater singer, because I had this like low voice and stuff. I think my first singing gig in New York was in a punk club in the East Village called 8BC. And as usual, it was a sub gig. I was subbing for a friend of mine who had medical issues. And so I went to the bombed out part of town, which is what it was back in the 80s. And we went to the Pyramid Club afterwards, and it was a whole like East Village downtown experience. And I drifted closer to club work because jazz and cabaret, you can hear the lyrics. And in the punk clubs, it was much more about noise. So I started doing like club stuff a little bit. And I fell into this big band gig and did that for a long time. And that really was my street training as far as doing jazz, because you have to have a book. You have to know your standards. You have to be able to count. You have to be able to be a sideman. And it was the best training. And I not only did big band gigs, there were party gigs, there were wedding gigs, you know, got to work with a lot of different people. I actually just did a gig with this big band on Halloween outside of the Theater for the New City in the East Village, which is, I'm always comfortable performing in the East Village. I feel complete there. It's sort of, I lived there for so many years, and you know, and it was a wonderful afternoon. It was beautiful. It was not too cold. The East Village is always full of characters. And I was saying at the microphone, I said, you know, it's very hard to tell who's dressed up for Halloween and who's just out for a Sunday stroll, you know. But it's true, you know. It's like, I guess I don't know what the LA equivalent would be. I don't know whether it's Venice Beach
days,
or
yeah, these days I'm not sure. It used to be Venice, but I don't think Venice is like that anymore. I think probably, believe it or not, Silver Lake, I'm guessing, because it's definitely come out of like disrepair into, you know, the new younger people and kind of hip places to go, stuff like that. So I'm guessing someplace like that might be the hipper area, because like Venice gets a very strange mix of people.
well, the East.
Or
It's not necessarily about up and coming hip. I mean, it's, you know, by now
no,
that we're talking
no,
Brooklyn, we're talking about like sort of old,
artsy.
yeah,
Yeah,
old
but
bohemians and
that's
anarchists and
yeah, I don't think Venice is like that. I think these are new anarchists.
is there such a
It's
thing?
not, yeah, I think so. I think so. It's not, when I say new and hip, I'm just talking about rooms that are, you know, some of the young people are more outspoken. They don't care. They are not following the status quo, you know. They're making their own kind of lifestyle and community. And in that way, I think it's similar to what you're talking about. Venice used to be like that, but then, I don't know, Venice became really commercialized.
Yeah,
And
really.
yeah, and a lot of people who go there are, I don't know where they're from. They're not, they're not from the artsy. I'll tell you that. That no longer is that. So I don't know.
So anyway, so that was as far as making a morph from theater to jazz. It was really that gig that colored everything. And because you know, it's just a very different mentality. You have to be fast on your feet. You have to have a much bigger musical knowledge. You have to be used to playing with lots of different people. And yeah, so and jazz, I don't know. It just, I never was a musical theater person. I never was like one of those people in college that like got drunk in the bars and sang from all the musicals. That just never was my thing.
Yeah.
I was doing radio in college.
Oh, you were?
and had the run of the radio station.
Oh.
So my shows just ran the gamut from, jazz, singer-songwriter, fusion, Chick Corea, Herbie Hancock. I mean, it was lots of things. And,
Yeah.
and I would get called. I always say, the difference between my radio show now and my radio show then is less hallucinogens. So, that kind of thing. So, but radio in college was so much fun. And we had a very passionate station where I went to school. And it's always, I think, going to be a love of mine to be able to play music on the radio and share it on the radio.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a few people probably who want to say hi. Gary Brumberg is here.
Hello.
And he's thanking you for all you do. And Tanya Grubbs is here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And Mark Baldrich, but I don't think you know Mark. And Dan Davila, you probably don't know him. Gary says, I moved from a strong musical theater background to jazz. Really, Gary? I don't think that's a secret, Gary Brumberg.
Not, the standards, it used to be your immortality for something to be a writer was if you got a show on Broadway. I mean, that was Johnny Mercer's big heartbreak, was that he never had like a Broadway hit.
Yeah.
And, and I love the story about Autumn Leaves because Johnny Mercer wrote with everybody.
Yeah.
And Autumn Leaves was sort of a side thing, bringing an English lyric to a French surrealist poet kind of thing. And Autumn Leaves is one of his biggest and most famous tunes.
Yeah. There's a Johnny Mercer show here next week at Catalina's.
No kidding.
Tribute, and I think his family is actually doing it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Beverly Church Hogan was on yesterday, and she's been invited to sing a song in it.
How has it been in LA to go back into the clubs?
Pretty good. There's a number of clubs that have passed on.
Us too. It's terrible.
Yeah. But Catalina's, through a fundraiser survived, and she got a lot of money through that fundraiser. And so people are going back to Catalina's quite a bit. And there's a place that kind of took over for the Blue Whale called Sam First. And that's near LAX, and a very small room, but they're doing business, but it's a very tiny room. And a place that I'm working at is kind of, it's not super well known, but it's getting more known actually. It's called the Conference Room, and it's outdoors. It's an outdoor patio. So it's really nice. What else? There's several home venues like all around LA, even down south. And Sherry Williams, her place is gotten back in Temecula.
Okay.
Her place has gotten back to it. And
I'm seeing, I know Judy Wexler just played the Baked Potato and
Baked Potato.
Not Catalina. Oh, and Vitello's is.
Oh yeah, Vitello's is still happening. Jay Clayton's coming to town. She's doing a brunch on Sunday. Yeah. Who's coming to town and doing a gig that Saturday night is Rosanna Vitro and Marion Cowings.
Marion, I sang with Marion in this big band that we were in, and Marion is the real deal. I was thrilled that the Charlie Parker project that Rosanna Vitro, it is such a labor of love, and it went through so many different incarnations, and it was in many ways very heartbreaking because it was Bob DeRoe's last live series of performances, and I'll never forget it. It was, I think, the January before he passed on, where she did an early incarnation at the Kitano, which is no more. And everybody came out because I think we all knew it was the last time we were going to see him. And, and when I heard that Marion had stepped in, I was thrilled because he's an incredible talent and just a wonderful old school jazz guy. So definitely go and
Yeah. Yeah, as a
check
matter
her
of fact,
out.
I saw the soapbox one when she had invited Sheila Jordan, and
Mhm.
also a guy named
Danny Bacher, the
her.
saxophonist.
Oh no, an ex-student of hers, a singer,
Oh,
who was really very good. I really enjoyed him a lot. I think I got the impression that he had been working a lot in Europe, but yeah, I don't remember. But it's probably still up on Soapbox. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, Dan's reminding me. Well, of course, vibrato is still going on, and also there was a series that had started before the pandemic called Just Jazz at a photo gallery in Hollywood called Mr. Music Head, and that has picked up again a lot, and they've expanded their nights. They were only doing Wednesdays, and now they're doing more. So it's pretty cool.
yeah, we lost the Kitano, we lost the Jazz Standard, we lost, some major venues. Birdland and Blue Note and the Vanguard and God bless Measures and Smalls, have persevered and been open. The Soapbox Gallery had been doing live stream performances all through the pandemic out in Brooklyn. It's a beautiful space run by a sculptor named Jimmy Greenfield. And it's a wonderful place. And I just played there at the end of September, and it was wonderful because I had people from all over the country being able to click in and see me. And I was not one of these people that was like doing performances in my bedroom type of stuff during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it was a very emotional experience to be able to do, and also there were more people. I think they opened up to about 40 people, and the place I had a lot of people there, and it was an amazing experience to play live, to play live stream. I think that's a great addition to performing. That just, I think, opens up another channel.
Yeah, I do too. I look forward to how it's going to expand, and also with 3D kind of images. I think it's going to move into that area. It was going that way anyway, but hadn't really gotten to it. But I think now it probably will do that even more, where you can watch in 3D. Like you actually see it in front of you.
Do you have to wear glasses?
Not on a screen. Yeah, actually, I just talked to Jimmy this morning. He's going to be on my show in a few weeks, which the owner of the Soapbox, and I'm really looking forward to talking to him a lot.
Fantastic.
Yeah, he and I think a lot alike about arts and responsibility and the availability of arts and how it can affect the world. And also, I am going to come out in a few times actually to the East Coast, and I think in June I'm going to play there. If he's still doing it, and yeah,
I see that continuing. It's a wonderful, intimate venue in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
and with also this great live stream capability. I don't see it something that is going to be a seasonal thing at all.
yeah. I know he does it all himself, and it's a lot to do. So I'm hoping for him to, have help, come along and help him in some ways. And maybe it's a Patreon thing. Maybe, there can be a Patreon connection for him where he can, have subscribers who basically support it for a low figure.
That whole thing you just said about responsibility for the arts, that definitely was something that drove me to do the radio show remotely. New York shut down very quickly in early March of 2020. And I do the show at a college in New Jersey, in Teaneck at Fairleigh Dickinson. And that shut down before the city shut down. And I guess I was dark for 3 weeks. And then a guy who has a syndicated radio show who programs remotely reached out to me and just said, you need to be on the air and I'm going to help you. And that was when I started broadcasting from my closet.
Oh.
And because, well, it was also this thing like you wanted to continue the music. You wanted to put out the call for people to support art directly, buy music, don't just stream it. But also because of what was happening politically and you know, New York was being just blackballed as a you know, anarchist jurisdiction, and you know, it's a garbage heap, blah, blah, blah. It was sort of like I kind of needed to get on the air once a week and go, hello, greetings from Greenwich Village. I'm here. I will report not only who's got something new to play, but what's happening outside my window, kind of thing. And also that bled into using social media because I would walk and take pictures. There's been a real increase in street art and graffiti. And it was just sort of like, I've been in New York too long. I'm intensely protective of my town. And I just don't like being told by somebody who doesn't live here what it is. So there was that feeling also of responsibility of not just furthering music and art, but also just live reporting from my town.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. So is it, I just thought, is it anywhere that I could actually find online that we can play a little bit just to kind of show people?
Of the radio show?
Yeah. Is it archived anywhere?
Yes. Mixcloud.com/A Broad Spectrum. That is where all of the shows live.
Nick, N-I-C-K?
No, M-I-X, Mixcloud, MIXCLOUD.com/A Broad Spectrum, which is one word, the name of the show.
Let's see. Yeah, because that would be kind of cool to show people a little bit of that.
Mixcloud is amazing. It really is a place where lots and lots of interesting radio shows are archived. John Pizzarelli's show is there. There's a wonderful European DJ who broadcasts remotely out of Brooklyn called Mondo Jazz, which is more European jazz. Just anybody you can think of. It's just wonderful, wonderful jazz programming there. This focus of my show, which is a broad spectrum, is women composers and lyricists. And I play instrumentalists, vocalists, men and women. The thing that is the factor is just a woman lyricist or a woman composer has to be involved. I think this
cool.
archive, yeah. And then you can, if you click on one show, it'll give you the playlist. And
just thought I'd click on Jay since she's here this week. Finally found the William. Is this your music? Did you open with?
No. This is a group that was assembled from the Positone label. I think this is by Nicole Glover. I'll have to.
So why like is Jay's picture up there?
Because Jay's birthday was that week. And
okay.
So Jay is in the song list. She's, I think, in the second hour, as a matter of fact. Where is she?
And do you Do you speak during this?
I do. You'll see if you expand that track list, you'll see all the different. Oh yeah, Jay is. Let me get out my little.
Where is the track list? Obviously, Mary, I haven't heard you from this.
You'll have to expand over on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Move down. You'll see a thing that says expand.
You mean all the way down
No,
here?
where you see this paragraph.
This paragraph.
The paragraph that says what the broadcast is.
This Halloween.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you there's on the left-hand side under the list of numbers, there's a thing called expand.
I don't have a list that appears. Can you see my page?
Yeah, and I'm looking right at it.
There's the playing tracks by and that tagged, and then there's nothing here on the left.
There is no song list. There should be.
No, can you see mine? There's nothing, there's no song list.
Wow. Maybe not. I don't know why you wouldn't get a song list though.
No.
I'll tell you what you can do. Yeah, unfortunately, I think you have to sign in.
Yeah,
I'm not
maybe
sure.
maybe that's actually what it is. So I'm going to just log in with my Facebook and see if that changes it. Maybe I will get it after I log in. No, still don't have it. It says here playing tracks by, but then there's no song list that comes up.
I think if you just come in, you don't get a. I'll tell you the other place where you can check is the shows are also allaboutjazz.com.
Yeah.
Also features the program. And I think on that one, they have allaboutjazz.com is also an incredible jazz feature. Because they feature radio shows and radio and podcasts, and a broad spectrum is right there.
I have to. Oh, here we go. Thanks. Oh, I have to remember what all my sign-in stuff is. Oh my God.
Yeah, the playlist for the show. If you go to allaboutjazz.com.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to be signed in to be able to access the radio broadcasts, but they have a
Okay. Let's see if my password is still good. Is it? I don't think so. Okay. Let me try that again. allaboutjazz.com. Okay, that should do it. Sign in, please. Well,
I don't think you have to be signed in, Cathy. I really don't. I think you can just scroll down the page to where the radio podcasts and radio shows are. Radio and
Right
podcasts. Here. Yeah. If you click on that, and if you here's your playlist.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Now, and that was the Halloween broadcast. And
so you speak later in the.
I would say, yeah, you'll see like around the 12-minute mark is when I first talk.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
So you have if you click on that link, it'll take you to. It's a 2-hour show. I usually speak about 12 times. I talk about music. I talk about the artists. I make a plea for people to go to websites and band camps to support them. I haven't really done a lot of live performances are just beginning to come back. By the way, that was playing was Rebecca's Dance, which is by saxophonist Nicole Glover. And it was part of a Positone collection called, the group is called Out to Dinner. And that album is called Play On. Mark Free at Positone. I wish there were 10 of him because on his label, he just has the habit of putting together artists on his label to play together and write together. And it's usually wonderful collections, mixture of men and women. And, Nicole Glover and Amanda Monaco, and just, and also he's just incredibly technical savvy. So I went up to him at the last jazz radio thing, and I just said, why aren't there 10 of you? Because your ideas are just wonderful. I've never been disappointed with an album off the Positone label.
What is it's Positone, and what's his name again?
Mark Free.
Okay. Mark Free. I knew a Scott Free. I wonder if they're related.
Yeah. We had fun on that Halloween broadcast. I played Renee Marie's Eartha Kitt tribute album and a wonderful Betty Garrett lyric called I'd Rather Be Burned as a Witch. And of course, I had 1,000 versions of Witchcraft because of Carolyn Lee. Uh-huh. And I kind of chose a punk version done by Peter Eldridge. There's a whole bunch of, it really is a collection. What I did of Jay Clayton's, because that was the week of her 80th birthday, of course. And there's so much to choose from with Jay, but she did a beautiful collaboration with pianist Kurt Nurok. And It was Emily Dickinson poetry and his music. And I just go back to that a lot. Mm-hmm. And their energies, and also just Jay's inventiveness and her facility with lyric. I mean, I'm a huge Jay Clayton fan, and I might be the only singer in New York that hasn't studied with her, but I am a fan.
Yeah, she speaks really well when she does that kind of stuff too. I had a poet on here a few weeks ago, a man named Michael C. Ford. And he's been a friend of mine for, I don't know how long, probably, 45 years, as long as I've been here. And he's been in a few of my shows, and he's worked with the members of the Doors because they were all in college together. Anyway, he's really good, and the way he speaks his poetry is perfect. You're just totally happy listening, it's really, really good. So that's good. Yeah, I've been writing lyrics to some more existing music pieces. I wrote a few which were accepted very graciously by the authors. Pat Metheny was one, and Vince Mendoza was one.
Fantastic. Oh, fantastic.
Yellow Jackets. And right now I'm writing for this, I don't know if you know this great pianist here named Otmaro Ruiz.
I know his name.
Yeah, he's an outstanding musician. And he's such a great writer. Oh, his music is so good. And there's one song that every time he plays it, I just have a conniption because he wrote it for his daughter. It's called And Then She Smiles. And it's really beautiful. So I wrote lyrics for that. So I'm going to probably record that in the next few months.
I like your lyrics. There was a lullaby that you wrote that the melody just tears your heart out. Oh. That I just love. And also I loved the duet that you did with Norma Winstone, Hippolytville, which was just, I just go, you're just a really fine writer. I just enjoy, I also have a very special respect for anybody who writes vocalese. It always has my attention. And I just celebrated Katie Margolis's birthday. Oh. And her wonderful lyrics that she's written to Cedar Walton and Charlie Parker. And, it's a special talent.
It is a special talent. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. There's somebody who does it really well, who I like. I actually told Rosanna to check out this guy here who's written lyrics to a bunch of bebop stuff. and he's not a professional singer, but he's a good singer. And he's written incredibly great lyrics to those. And, writing lyrics, as you know, when you try and sing those songs, first of all, they're challenging enough as, as the music themselves, right? But then to have the words fit into the mouth with the note and then the sentence going by so that you can actually make it make sense. And I think that's all pretty challenging, don't you?
I do very much so.
Gary Brumberg, what did I tell you about Hippolytville? I can't remember what you said. Oh, I think you said you played it over and over and over again. Yeah. And Norma, singing with Norma was really fun. I think we're on kind of the same page as far as singers, what comes out of us. So that was, and what was cool was when I first asked her about that song, she said, "Oh, I love that song." And I said, "You love that song?" And she had a gig right opposite in the same building as John Abercrombie. And they played that song every night. So she grew to love that song. So when I said, "Well, how about Hippolytville?" She said, "Oh my God, yes." So that was pretty fun.
And this is from the woman who wrote Ladies in Mercedes, among others,
She's so good. And that body of work she did with Fred. That was really, really beautiful.
Yeah. Song of Life is, in my mind, a
beautiful
jazz, what they would call a jazz standard.
I agree. Yeah, that is really, I agree with you. Yeah.
And also, I mean, that whole album, Stars. I mean, I'm thinking there are multiple recordings of some of those tunes that are just fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Here we go. I'm looking at a few. Oh, Dan found you singing Mr. Moon with Tracy Stark, but that was from 2014. I don't know if you want us to play it or not.
No. I would go to my, I sent you.
Yeah, I'm cool. I just wanted to ask about that. Dory Amarillo, do you know Dory? He is part of the big time part of the community. He's a guitarist, really good guitarist. And he is a composer and arranger, and he has a really nice studio that I often take projects to, because not only is the studio nice, but it's really nice to have him there because he's got such a good mind for comments and suggestions, So he said, just listen to your Some Cats Know, which is great. And let's see what else. Tanya says your performance was fantastic. Oh, Gary's reminding me there's another place called the Urban Winery, which is good. Gary actually performed there a few weeks ago. Another song by my guest is Life, something Life. I don't see it yet because it's small. But I'll go to your page. I love your morning art spot strolling. Cathy, Claudia wanted
Life is a, that was the Life is a Bitch. It's part of the Fran Landesman project. What I would do instead is go to my website, go to the video page. There is a Fran Landesman poem and a Fran Landesman tune that I just did at the Soapbox.
Okay.
Because that was a thing that I did a couple of years ago, was a whole Fran Landesman project.
Okay. And Gary said your show has been a great boost for us, Mary. Thank you. I also loved your idea of posting a picture of all the CDs you were going to play a track on for an upcoming show. What gave you that idea?
It's DJs have done it. We've, at the jazz radio conference, there's all this talk back and forth about what is a good way to bring in younger viewers. And somebody had recommended, a couple of the DJs said, get on Instagram. And I was like, but Instagram is a visual.
Yeah.
But they were like, but the young people, that's where they go. So, but this is where your album cover choice, your album photography choice still matters quite a bit, because it will draw people into your whole, all that talk that they always talk to you about your sound, your brand, your vibe, all that kind of stuff. With new releases also within the pandemic, there were people that were just, all the musicians were devastated, because not only was their livelihood cut off, but people who had new projects, suddenly there was no place to perform.
Yeah.
There was no, and no end in sight as far as when that was going to resume.
Yeah.
So it seems like the jazz world is like the last bastion of places to start playing singles. And because I had people reach out to me, and I also reached out to people where they were like, I don't know when we're going to be able to do our tour, blah blah blah. I don't know when we're going to be able to finish this project, but I have this cut and that cut. And I was like, give it to me, I'll play it. And
yeah,
so whatever you could provide. There were people that were also doing live performances. Tony Desar, Champion Fulton, Yoko Miwa, Miki Yamanaka. There were people that were performing regularly in their bedrooms, in their living rooms, type of thing. And it was important. Brandy Younger and Desron Douglas did a whole album that way. And it was, I loved the title of it, Force Majeure, which is always that force majeure, which is the clause in a contract that sort of what happens when like a hurricane gets rid of your gig. Circumstances beyond your control.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Regarding covers and stuff, yeah, it's interesting. I have like 15 CDs, so I have a mixture of covers, and I do like the ones with no face on the front, but like this is my last one, right? But I will say, but that's the front, and then there's the back. However, look at this one, which I'm sure you've seen. That is
yes,
friggin' gorgeous cover, isn't it? Woo! Love it.
I'm so glad that Paul came out to California, because he's a very special performer. And he does, I think, a once a month gig at the Soapbox. And
He
he's
does, yeah.
incredibly inventive musician and vocalist. He's really quite special.
He takes his creativity very, not serious in a bad way, but, very in a committed way, which I find thrilling myself. And, it's always interesting to me to look around the room when a performer is performing and see what the effect is on the audience. And for him, people were literally stunned. They were like this because of his commitment. He's so totally committed and so transparent, and of course so wonderful. That it was, and Sheila Jordan, when she came, and this is in a private home, like a home venue. She was so wonderful, and the last song, I looked around, people were crying. And
have you heard the album that has surfaced of Sheila's that was done in 1960?
I don't think
so. Oh my God, it is something very special. I have to, now you have me needing to get on my,
I did.
It's on the Candid label. And it was an album that was recorded back when she was, working in an ad agency.
Yeah.
Taking care of her daughter.
I did send her a downbeat from, I don't know when it was from. Was it the 60s, Dan? Remember those downbeat?
It's called, it just came out in September. It's called Comes Love, Lost Sessions, 1960. And it's an amazing collection of Sheila Jordan. She does a version of the Ballad of the Sad Young Man on the subject of Fran Landesman that is just stellar.
Wow.
1960 is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And here you have a very young Sheila Jordan sounding much more like a girl singer, and yet her choice of her phrasing and her style, there's something so special. It's an amazing album to listen to. I recommend it highly.
Cool. I'm definitely going to go look for that one.
Yes. So this is the part I like about the radio show. It's like when my friend Mark Winkler, our good friend Mark Winkler, when we get together, we are seriously like people who sit around. Have you heard this? Who are you listening to? Have you heard this? Have you heard this? Just like you would sit in somebody's house and just play records.
Yeah.
But what I love about doing the radio show is just that it keeps my focus, and it's not just vocalists, it's instrumentalists. I mean, there's a wonderful instrumentalist composer out of the West named Samantha Boschnack. I think she's a trumpeter. And she sent me back when the radio show was young, a concept album based on the writings of Nellie Bly. And it was fascinating, that kind of stuff where you just kind of go, well, that's kind of cool. And then her latest was about volcanoes, and yeah, she's a trumpeter, composition person, and that kind of stuff where suddenly you're just hearing from other parts of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm also been interested to see what's been coming out of people since the shutdown.
Yes.
Because it seems to be an intensely creative time where people are kind of generating stuff that has to do with where they were at during the pandemic.
Yes, definitely. Lots of reflective things. There's several people one person on your side of town is Scott Robinson. Are you familiar with him?
Mm-hmm.
And he is an endless supplier of creativity. He just goes and goes and goes. He plays all kinds of woodwind instruments. He has, a studio at home that has hundreds of instruments. He keeps putting out these very artistic CDs. And then this guy, I wondered if you had heard about this guy, Ricky Kej. He is, I interviewed him. What a love. Oh my God. He's adorable. He's kind of a young guy. He is a musician, but you know what he did? He's very successful, actually, and he's a little bit more, he says it's new age, but to me, I think the term new age has actually shifted. Doesn't mean what it meant, when you and I were younger. But anyway, so he's really a big time composer, but many years ago when he was younger, he decided to not do any projects unless they were related to healing the planet. And that's the only projects he's accepted or done. And he's still gotten very well known, which I applaud. I think that's really amazing,
Well, I don't think that's a new thing, really. What you would call conscientious artwork. I mean, goodness.
Well, I don't know
the day of the election. I will never forget. I was just thinking this because the date just passed. The night of the 2016 election, was it? I was at Birdland listening to Tierney Sutton, and she was doing her Sting piece, and I'm watching the numbers come out, and she's singing "Driven to Tears." And Tierney's also been somebody who, she does wonderful work with the standards and stuff, but she's also been someone with an ear to the planet and the times.
Yes, but what I'm saying is Ricky Kej is hugely successful. He uses orchestras and compositions, and I mean he is, and not to put us singers down, but he's not just a singer. in the jazz community. He's actually a big time composer, and for him to kind of bravely make that commitment when he was younger and then stick to it and then get super successful, that's the thing that impressed me about him.
I have been watching Esperanza Spalding in the last couple of years because she's also sort of gone her own way. And
Yes, yeah.
her latest recording through the Songwriters Apothecary Lab, which she wanted to focus specifically on music wellness and music therapy. And yet she has also teamed up with Wayne Shorter and written an opera, on the Iphigenia myth.
Uh-huh.
I find her work kind of fascinating. And then before that, she was making forays into the pop world. I mean, she was one of the few breakout jazz artists who, won a Grammy for Best New Artist, beating out Justin Bieber, I might add. I find her path quite fascinating.
Yeah.
Because she really can't be slotted. Cecile McLaurin-Salvant is another one.
Yeah.
One of the things I saw, I guess, back in 2019 was her piece, The Ogress, which was an hour and a half, one woman show with orchestra behind her it was a fairy tale about a giantess that eats children and the man that is commissioned to go into the woods to kill her. And it was fascinating. It was so far from, what you would think of the winner of the Thelonious Monk jazz competition.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that wasn't, I mean, I can imagine it wasn't really jazz, right?
It also raises a question. What is jazz these days? It's certainly gone far beyond Great American Songbook,
Yeah.
or Charlie Parker and bebop.
Right.
It is, I find it's in multiple territories. It's, sound portraits, it's free jazz, it's political. Terry Lynn Carrington's work as far, with social science and encompassing rap, and then also veering into what I would call old-fashioned singer-songwriter territory. I mean, it's quite a wide field these days as far as what would you call, is there one sound that you would say, well, that's jazz? It's more than swing. It's more than, it has gone into classical territory.
Yeah. But that particular, because Cecile is quite skilled in several different genres.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw her recently here. She was at the Ford Theater and with Sullivan, and they went everywhere. But you really get the impression that a song is, let's say, from theater. She's not really. I don't know if this is such a great term, but jazzing it up. She's not doing that. But with the jazz tunes, she's definitely the jazz singer. And and she's brilliant. I mean, she's a genius. She's really amazing. It's as is Sullivan. I mean, both
That's
of them.
An amazing pairing. I never get tired of what I would call duo collaborations, vocal and piano, and going, starting with the classics. I mean, everybody's got their favorite, Pure
Bill
Ella,
Evans
and
Bill Evans,
or Bill Evans and Tony Bennett, Norma Winstone and Fred Hirsch. I mean, just incredible. It's a very level playing field where both come to the table with their stuff.
Do you know Jeremy Siskind, the pianist?
I know.
Who he lived in New York for a while. Anyway, he's back here, and I had him on the show, and I thought, oh, I need to, because I also love performing in duos. So I said, we have to get together and just see what happens. So we did, and I've sung a lot of duos over the years, but every now and then you have this kind of unique, spontaneous thing, everybody has their own qualities, right? You play with this guy, it's wonderful. This woman, it's great, and for various reasons. But anyway, Jeremy and I had the same kind of energy that I had with a guy I traveled a lot with for years in Japan, Phil Strange. And so I made a gig up for us and got that happening. We're going to be here in that home venue on November 20th. So I'm excited about that just because the energy is amazing and fun. And the duo situation Tony Bennett and Bill Evans, Johnny Hartman, right? Just these, it's, you kind of relish in the subtleties. And speaking about Cecile M. Sullivan, that's what's so incredibly exciting to listen to, is those somewhat in control, right? Subtleties. They're being channeled, and you're so experienced in doing it that you're capable of doing it. And what comes out is just, it really is the true meaning of perfection. It's not it's not the same notes at the same precise time, but it's more of a different kind of perfection, right? Spiritual perfection.
I'm going through my head of just, multifaceted writers, performers. You just had Luciana Sosa on your show, and she is, she's written great things with Leonard Cohen. She's written with Yellow Jackets. She's, multilingual and one of the most musical people I can think of. And she's another one that I feel like wears a lot of hats and is an educator and sort of covers a lot of ground.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. She's, another beautiful thing is she's humble about it. And, welcoming, humble. We have some other comments, by the way, here. And Dan just sent a Jazz Time review of the Sheila Jordan album, which is nice. I'm definitely going to open that. Thanks, Dan. And Gary said, Sheila Jordan has been a great inspiration. Humdrum Blues, Falling in Love with Love, Baltimore Oriole, from her classic 62 Blue Note CD album. Claudia, she heard her many years ago in Canada. And jazz is about storytelling and is the bottom line of what is jazz, the improvisatory aspect. Let's talk about that. That's a good question, Roland. And probably people have different opinions about that. What do you think?
Oh, I think spontaneous composition is definitely the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
And also just emphasis on groove and swing and sort of laying a framework and then leaving a certain element open for discovery. Have I lost you?
Sorry, you froze and I really didn't hear that, but it's just the internet connection. Would you say that again? If you can remember what you said.
Well, I would definitely say, the thing that makes jazz different from musical theater is the fact that I find there are less right angles in jazz, and improvisation is definitely a big piece of it. You can say lots of things like it's well-ordered chaos. You can say also that it involves, some call it swing, others call it groove. But improvisation, definitely, that spontaneous composition.
Yeah, and when you think about when you think about a delivery in both, like let's just take two genres, for instance, like either a classical or theater genre and jazz genre. Generally speaking, these genres you're singing the melody that's on the page pretty close. I mean, you're allowed to breathe and put your personality into it, but still, you don't want to phrase too differently from how it's written because that's just the genre and how it's set up. Over here, the genre is definitely looser. Now, I think they're both on a flow. You know, the good cabaret singer is a great artist, right? I mean, there's good and bad cabaret, there's good and bad jazz. You know, it's all of that kind of stuff is the same. But the jazz, there's some kind of an extra improvisatory manner, like you're really going with the flow, or
Are
it's
you
it,
familiar with a group called the Baylor Project? Gene Baylor
yes,
and Marcus Baylor.
yes,
I
yeah,
just played an out. They've been very busy during the pandemic. They released a couple of what you would call pandemic singles, which were fun, that were specifically targeted towards the pandemic. But
yeah.
they put out a great album recently called Generations, and they featured a lot of different vocalists. And I just played a cut from that album called We Swing.
Mm.
And the two featured vocalists on the cut were Diane Reeves and Jasmine Horn. Now,
Oh,
talk about
wow.
a jazz master and a young,
Yeah,
another one. Jasmine Horn is another one that is,
yeah,
yeah, you can call her up and coming, but she's kind of like up and coming like a rocket. And what was wonderful about the tune is, you know, it's got a melody, it's got its lyrics, but they leave a lot of room for the two of them to just converse in scat. And that's the thing that I like, is because instrumentalists are allowed to converse in the moment all the time.
yeah.
Vocalists don't necessarily get that privilege.
Mm.
There and you when you get two people who are that facile, not every jazz singer is a facile
Yeah,
improviser,
yeah,
but I love listening to vocalists do that. I mean,
yeah.
oh my God, two of my favorite, I love putting people together. Bob DeRoe loved doing duet albums with people. Oh gosh, one of my favorite guilty pleasures is Leah Delaria with Janice Siegel. When Leah did her David Bowie album, she brought Janice Siegel on for Suffragette City. And I mean, I've seen them live a couple of times, and you've got two fearless improvisers, and there were no survivors. I mean, it was just very exciting, in the moment music type of thing, which is, I think, the thing that
Yeah, yeah.
earmarks. Well, I mean, even on Broadway, there's nothing like live performance. I went back to when Broadway reopened in September. I went to Hadestown, which I had not seen. And if you haven't seen it, you must see it when it comes to LA. But it was such an emotional experience to sort of reclaim the live experience. And nobody was phoning it in.
Yeah,
Everybody was sort of getting a real charge of, I'm not going to take this for granted, that this is just, my gig.
yeah, yeah,
It was such an emotional experience to reconnect.
yeah,
And it's that thing in the moment. It's just that thing in the moment. I mean, I can remember, when I came to New York and wanting to try to see the people that I totally admire, to see Betty Carter on stage at the Blue Note and watch her, at one point turn her back on the audience and just terrorize her trio. And maybe she sang 10 full lyrics in the entire evening, but they all landed, and you just wanted to follow her where she was going,
yeah,
and Abby Lincoln was another one. Mark Murphy was, you would want to, he always said the first set was for the tourists. And the second set was when he would get into his Brazilian material and go into outer space. And it was, those are evenings that you can't, they're gone once they're done.
yeah, yep, exactly.
So I don't know if that answers your question of what makes it jazz, but I will say sort of, again, it's like in the moment,
Yeah.
discovery, conversation.
Yeah. I think that that kind of answers it. I'm going to go, speaking of that, I'm going, are these both at the Soapbox?
Yes. One of them is a Fran Landesman poem and a album on a tuner, and the other one is a Dave Frischberg tune. Dave Frischberg and Alan Broadbent.
Okay. Which one shall we play?
Scars is kind of heavy. Heart's Desire is kind of sweet.
I'm okay. I don't mind being heavy unless, I mean,
No, it's not like horrible, but and also it's an interesting poem
okay.
that's sort of about our times.
Today is as gray as ashes, and tomorrow hasn't a prayer.
Oh yeah, I know this.
The past is a foreign country. They do things different there. The past smells of spice and polish, and the sun shines every day. Its glory can burn forever, and it scars you as you play. Our dreams are taken from us, and memories a sweet disease that clouds the mind. We feed on our illusions when everyone was beautiful and brave and kind. The past is a magic garden set behind a wall of years, where the boys wear swords of laughter and the girls weep sugar tears. You mourn for your missed connections as seasons spin too fast. You only remember the sunshine days in the country of the past. Don't be ashamed. Everybody's got scars from our various wars on our way to the stars. Don't try to hide. Everybody's got scars from crash landing on Mars. These egos of ours. There's the one on your knee as you fell off your bike, or the bike from a guy you could love but don't like. There's the mess that you made without counting the cost, or the cut from a blade, or the child that you lost. Don't be ashamed if you're covered with scars. That's the way we keep score on this planet of ours. So I'll show you my scars if you show me yours. In the streets, in the bars, everybody's got scars on their way to the stars. Everybody's got scars.
Beautiful. Mary, your singing is so wonderful.
It was very emotional to get back into singing. I had a real rock and roll year last year, in the last couple of years, actually.
Yeah.
I lost both my parents, and my husband had COVID very early.
Oh,
So it was kind of a rock and roll time for me. I really, last year was not able to make music because I was sort of overwhelmed.
yeah.
And I got approached by the Mabel Mercer Foundation. They were doing Peggy Lee Centennial, and that's how the Some Cats Know video came about. And when I stopped at the pandemic, I was just re-exploring the Jerry Lieber, Mike Stoller Mirrors project, which was a recording they did for Peggy Lee in 1976. And that was sort of the beginning of being able to get a toehold back. And when I started to explore what felt like, what did I feel like singing? It was interesting.
Yeah.
Sort of what came. There was a lot of new stuff that came out. And I've always liked Fran Landesman. And I find her one of the few women beat poets. And her stuff just is incredibly smart. She was very smart. I saw her live once. And I came to her because of the material she wrote with Bob Dorrell. And I'm very happy to see, there are lots and lots of recordings now of Nothing Like You, which Cecile just did it. And which makes me happy for both of them. And Scars is such a wonderful, it's one of the later tunes. I first heard Susanna McCorkle do it. And when I was younger, I was just like, wow, that's deep. I would never be able to sing a song like that. And of course, as you get older, you just step to the mic and report. And that's pretty much,
That's
what
nice.
you can.
That's a nice way of putting it. I thought that was how I felt about Mark Murphy's last album. I thought, wow, it really feels like he's talking to me directly about where he is right now. Like this is probably the end of the road, and it's been a really good ride, and it just seemed very about that, very much about his perspective at that point in life.
He was always good with ballads, though. He
Oh,
really was.
his record, his record ballads.
I think of, oh my God, that was a nice duo album he did with Benny Green. And he did things like.
There's a record called Ballads.
I know that he did. I'm not familiar with that specific.
Yeah. Gorgeous.
But
they're absolutely, totally gorgeous. Also, my guest yesterday, another friend of Mark's, and you probably know her, Beverly Church Hogan. She's turning 87.
Mm-hmm. God bless.
87. And she's, her delivery is better and better all the time. She had a very interesting singing history, really interesting singing. She came up when she was younger, and up until she had her child, she was, really like great. And also when she had her child, like a year later, she was offered like a big Capitol thing from Capitol Records.
Oh, sure.
And she actually turned it down because she didn't want to go on the road and away from her husband and her child. And they said, "Are you serious?" And she said, "Yes, I am." And then she stopped singing for 40 years. And then she started singing again. And she has it, you know what I mean? When you listen to her, it's when you listen to a singer who knows what it's all about, they fall into the rhythm and the phrasing and, that whole delivery just so perfectly that you're like, that felt good.
Do you know, after 9/11 happened, I found myself gravitating towards older singers because I needed reassurance that we were going to be all right. I can tell you, I went to see Tony Bennett at Radio City, and he was touring at that time with Katie Lang. And boy, that was an interesting audience, let me tell you. And he, Radio City is his space. And
Yeah.
I went to see Andy Bay at Birdland, and
Now,
there is a singer with a
great,
unique,
amazing singer.
yeah. And also, I mean, he did one of the most haunting versions of Sting's Fragile.
Yeah.
And that lyric was incredibly timely for 9/11.
Yeah.
And also, I went to go see Blossom Dearie, who was holding sway at, Danny's Grand Sea Palace on Restaurant Row, but also an individual voice who had been there for a long time. Sometimes I got into this with a music writer who I respect very highly. At one point, I played a cut of Margaret Whiting's, the great Margaret Whiting.
Yeah.
She did a version of a Francesca Blumenthal tune called The Lies of Handsome Men.
Yeah.
And I had seen Margaret do this live. And Margaret was such a great performer because also just could tell a story, could frame a lyric.
Yeah.
And her version of The Lies of Handsome Men, it was poignant, it was humorous, it was, she was a middle-aged woman who it was sort of like Mad About the Boy kind of thing, where she just goes, I can't help myself, but I need those live. And I had just posted it, as I do when I play cuts sometimes, and somebody offered, oh, you should hear this younger singer's version of it. And I kind of went to task with him, and I was like, I think this lyric resonates differently when an older woman sings it.
Yeah.
And I prefer it because, and it was just, but that's also the thing with judging singers in many respects. I think it's very subjective.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a right and a wrong answer.
Yeah. Definitely.
That there are some singers that people adore because of the sound of their voice. Other people go, oh, I can't stand that singer because of, the sound of their voice. I don't want to get into, who's better, best, all that stuff, or even whose interpretation is the most effective. There are certain singers that will always slay me, but most of the time it's because I've seen a live performance that just stopped my heart. I mean, Lena Horne is one of the ones that comes to mind. Me sitting in the back balcony of the back row of the Niederlander Theater when she did The Lady in Her Music. I still get verklempt when she did The Lady in Her Music, and I thought she was singing directly to me. And I could not see her on television after that without getting emotional, because she just was that electric and a performer. Renee Marie is another one. Just somebody who just
there was a jazz singer, Little Esther Phillips. So Little Esther Phillips, I saw in LA when I don't know how old I was. I was probably in my 20s or 30s. And the first view of her, I was kind of shocked, and I thought, oh my God, she is so homely looking. Her mouth was so huge, like I mean, just with her mouth closed, it was huge. She looked like a horse. And then she started singing, and by the end of the first set, I could not recollect how I thought she was ugly. What a great lesson. It was so great. Yeah. So I know what you mean. There are like live singers, you see the whole package, it's amazing. And your move, like we were talking about Sheila and Paul Jost before,
I have done this. I haven't done it since the pandemic because there hasn't been live performance, but it's that thing where I go, where I'll remember certain performers that I was lucky enough to see live. And I just go, if you really want the experience, go see your heroes live. Go see them live.
Absolutely. I've been really trying to whip up singers here to come see Jay this week at the brunch on Sunday. I don't think singers really realize that their musicality has come along her line, you know, and you know, man.
It's hard though. I feel right now, I don't know how you feel in LA because, you know, you're a little more spread apart and things are more outdoors, but you know, in New York, it's not necessarily, I mean, people are starting to come back into clubs, but not everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and also in New York, there are too many of us. We are still, you know, fully masked on the subways. There are certain clubs, the Stone in the East Village not only demands that you have proof of vaccination, they ask for a negative COVID test within the week. So,
Wow.
well, it's not over yet. And I know that I have started going back into the clubs, but it's sort of like, it's not like we can all just throw our masks off and pretend we're in a magic land, that it's not going to happen. I mean, I'm watching New York's numbers start to creep up. You know, we're over 3% again. So it might, for a lot of people, they might not necessarily be comfortable going back to the clubs yet. And you have to respect that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a different issue for me. You know, I mean, I can understand that. What I don't understand is a disconnection of knowledge of that who are the jazz veterans and lineage that we come from. That's what I feel like New York is better connected to those ideas than LA is. And so that's kind of my quest.
And I applaud it because I make it a point on my show to play singers from the past,
Yeah.
writers from the past. The great Janet Lawson just had a birthday and she passed away in January of this year. And I mean, you go to her classic recordings and the woman, there was no, you know, she incredibly inventive bebop singer.
Yeah.
And, you know, that part of my job where it's just constantly reintroducing people. When Wessla Whitfield was in hospice, I was playing maybe more Wessla than usual. But what was wonderful was I got response from singers who had never heard of her and just said, "Who is the singer? She's breaking my heart."
Yeah.
And I sent emails to my Green Soul and just said, "Tell Wessla she is making converts even as she is making preparations to leave the room."
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff is important.
Yeah.
It just is. You know, it was, you know, one of them. You talk about deception. I mean, I remember when my favorite Anita O'Day live performance. It was the only time I saw her live, I think, and she was on a bill with the Manhattan Transfer during maybe the JVC Jazz Festival, and she was with one of her original drummers, and that woman's time, unbelievable. And that's the other thing with jazz. It's not just, you know, inventive improvisation, but a certain people's sense of time and groove.
Yeah.
You know, the stuff that just gets your head going.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I was listening to an Anita O'Day record that I have in my files. And, you know, I don't know about you because you listen to so much, but sometimes I listen over and over to a record, you know, for a while. So I'd just been listening to her for the last week, and it was especially a great period of time for her, and just her comfort, you know, and naturalness in what came out in phrasing, you know, lyrically and melodically, and of course harmonically and timing. Just, yeah, she was. It's kind of like getting religious over and over when you hear it again and again, because it really does instigate this space. Right? It's a space that's I don't know what else to call it, but it is like a connection to God, it's great.
A young singer that was new to me who has constantly blown my mind is she plays trombone and she writes as well as sings. Her name is Aubrey Logan.
Aubrey Logan. Yeah,
And
that's another genius girl.
yeah, really, they're the people that are just sort of, they do their own thing. They really do their own, and she's somebody who is extremely hardworking, but has an incredible instrument.
I agree. Totally. I just wanted to say a few things. Mark loved that album that Mark Murphy's, it's called September Ballads. Actually, Barbara Brighton turned me on to that years ago. It's a really beautiful record. And Gary Brumberg saw a tribute to Billie Holiday at the Bowl in 1979. Esther Phillips, Nina Simone, Morgana King, Maxine Weldon, and Carmen McRae.
There you go.
Oh my God. And he says over and over, Anita's live performance in Germany of Honeysuckle Rose. And Dina DeRose is here. She said hi. And she said, Anita in 63 and 70 live concerts on YouTube are great. Yeah. Yep.
Dina DeRose is also a fantastic, powerful live performer. I've seen her many times and just always delivers incredibly tasty performances. The last time she was at Birdland, she blew the roof off. I mean, you go in there with, those lackluster music, that lackluster rhythm section of hers. I think it was Martin Wind on bass and Matt Wilson on drums, and they were just a powerhouse.
That's funny. Well, personally, I won't mention names, but I'm very opinionated about singers, of course, and surprise, surprise. But sometimes the singers who are kind of, have a lot of notoriety and truly have great instruments and do it. They have great skill, but I could totally leave the room. And to me, more of the person like Dina DeRose, who's all around great, but also she's a beautiful person, and that actually comes through. And there's a different kind of a flow that comes through when I hear that and I observe it, and that's where I'll hang out all night, and watch or listen or whatever, because that's what I'm looking for, that's what I'm looking for, kind of a healing, I guess, when I listen. I want to go to that spot and get inspired or get healed,
There was something about Mark, and I'm thinking of Paul Jost, and I'm thinking of Andy Bay. There's a thing besides inventiveness and groove and time. There's a thing that I've always called the singer's cry, which is sort of the part of their instrument that is just sort of the full-throated part of them that kind of is a window to, gosh, I'm getting cosmic here, sort of the window to their soul base thing.
Yeah.
The singer's cry, and it's very personal. Renee Marie, very powerful. Abby Lincoln, where it's Betty Levette.
I am such a fan of hers.
I loved her last album. She is just magnificent. Nina Simone, where it's they're able to voice the emotion that you wish you could do yourself. I think that's why people follow performers in many ways, because the performer is able to be, as they would say in the South, they are the vehicle, to their people's emotions, dreams, fantasies, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. let's see. Mark actually said, oh, he loves Dina DeRose's last CD, Ode to the Road.
I
And
did too.
also, he wants to know if you talked about your love of Matt Dennis, which you
I
did.
did not. And I am so glad you brought that up because I wanted to. It's the thing that ties me to the West Coast. It's things that brought me to Mark Winkler. It is the thing that changed how I find material. It really was. You have to go back 20 years and understand that my second recording, which had been profiled in the Times, and it was a nice album, I have to say. I'll always enjoy it. But it had the release date of September 12th, 2001. So let's just say it was eclipsed by world events. And then 3 months after that, my mother-in-law had a debilitating stroke. So I was caretaking and going back and forth to an unheated farmhouse in North Carolina, and sort of in a different sort of in a humbled place creatively. And Matt Dennis was someone who I knew a handful of his tunes, and somebody had turned me on to. I didn't realize he had been somebody who played in the clubs, small clubs. He was in both in LA and in New York and all over the country back when there were such rooms in every town and every hotel. But there's a wonderful Matt Dennis plays and sings. And I remember calling up it used to be, and you're old enough to know this, when you were looking for a lead sheet for a song, you would call up the publisher of the singer or the artist, and they could send you tell them who you were, and they would send you a lead sheet.
Yeah.
And I called up Matt Dennis's publisher asking about some obscure tune on that album. And this young girl said, she sniffed at me and just said, well, if Sinatra didn't record it, why should we have it on file? And I didn't know what to say to her. But suddenly it was like, it became very important to find out where some of this obscure material was going, because this woman was talking about it like it was garbage, ephemera. And I ended up, you remember Bob Grimes in San Francisco, who was the great go-to, and Roger Crane, God bless him, the song scout, these people around the country that you would reach out to for obscure material, the great Hollywood sheet music that I still, go to all the time looking for material. But I ended up going to the Library of Congress and broke open a box. And it was like 40 years of Matt Dennis.
Oh my God.
Music, because Matt had played the Smithsonian in the 80s and had brought, his folio to the Smithsonian, to the Library of Congress. Yeah. And there were some tunes I knew and lots of tunes I didn't. And I don't know about you, but I mean, you've lost enough loved ones, and there's sometimes you don't want to put things back in a box. You want it to be out in the world. And one thing also that has been reinforced doing this radio show is I'm getting a little tired of the same 25 standards. And you know what I'm talking about. Not that they're bad, but they're done to death.
Yeah.
And in this box were all these other tunes. And even Cole Porter wrote bad songs. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, every song is great.
That process and that experience of putting together a Matt Dennis project, it opened up a whole world to me, of it really, it got me to the West Coast. It brought, in the year before I was doing the Matt Dennis project, Mark Winkler, incredible singer and lyricist, put out a Bobby Troop album. And we finally met in New York, and he had come to New York also with David Bassie from Kansas City.
Yeah, right.
And David was doing Matt Dennis tunes, and Mark was doing Bobby Troop tunes. I think Kenny Barron played for them on the at the old cutting room. And it was just a wonderful way of discovering a whole world of sort of the West Coast cool movement of Bobby Troop and Matt Dennis and Chet Baker and that kind of thing, where it was all, I don't know, the more I dug, the more interesting stuff I found, and none of it was the same 25 tired standards.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's so much that can be mined. I just got a new CD from a singer from Canada who I had heard on a instrumentalist project as the featured vocalist, this woman named Jocelyn Barth. Mm-hmm. Jocelyn has a wonderful instrument, but she won my heart with this new CD because she had a Dorothy Fields and Jimmy McHugh tune I had never heard of.
Oh.
And that's like, you get points for the verse, you get points for stumping the band.
Yeah.
And it's a gorgeous tune. I think it's called Lost in a Fog.
There's a writer here. I don't know if you've ever heard Michael Dees. You would love his songs. His songs are really like standards, and he's just a great, great, great writer. He lives in Palm Springs now, but I know he's done lots of different things in his career, and he's done well in his career, but this particular aspect he's very prolific, and really, if you hear the songs, maybe I can send you something, just for you to check out some.
I feel badly for the male writers. Josh Nelson sent me his latest release, which is wonderful. And I wrote him back and I was like, Josh, you're not a woman. How can I put it any other way? But I love the album. And every now and then, I have bent the rules to play things that I really want people to hear.
Yeah.
But I feel badly because, they're incredible male writers and lyricists that I do not play on my show because I've just chosen a very specific focus.
Yeah. And well, just for your listening pleasure, there's a writer who writes to me like Bonnie Raitt is a man. He's a guitar player. He's from Canada. His name is Mark Jordan, M-A-R-C, Mark Jordan, and he is his singing. Talk about jazz singing. He really sings like a jazz singer. He's kind of loose and he phrases, I mean, really, James Taylor, the last time I saw James Taylor, he was phrasing like a jazz singer. And at the Hollywood Bowl, he was doing all his old material, but phrasing in a whole different way. And he had a jazz band. But Mark Jordan, M-A-R-C, he's really good. I mean, I just love listening to him.
There was a writer on Kate McGarry's latest album, What to Wear in the Dark. A couple of years back at National Sawdust, she did a song by a North Carolinian writer named Paul Cueri called God Moves on the City, which was an out-of-town take on 9/11. And it just destroyed me. Yeah. And I was so glad that she was able to finally include it on this album of hers because I've always loved that song and I love the way she did it. So, and you do a little digging on him. He's a folk writer with a prolific folio, but a Job-like existence. So, you cannot do enough contemporary writers because a lot of what a lot of the venues that writers used to have aren't there anymore. I mean, Matt Dennis started as the music director for the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra in the 40s and then went to playing these little clubs around the country, and these little clubs don't exist. And the reason why he's best known is Yeah. The reason why he's best known is because one of the featured singers in the Tommy Dorsey band was a young Frank Sinatra. And I remember, I don't know if Mark and I had this conversation, but I was always wondering why Frank Sinatra didn't record any Bobby Troup. And I ran into a pianist in Florida who said that Bobby Troup had too much to drink one night and made some talk about he didn't like Frank Sinatra's voice. And so Frank Sinatra never recorded a Bobby Troup tune.
There you go.
But Nat King Cole
like,
and plenty of other guys did. So
that's
he
kind of
did
like,
okay.
you know, my feeling of, I always tell my students, always make friend with the sound man. Always, you know, treat them good.
Our world is very small, you know. that stuff your dad told you about, you know, don't be nasty on when you're coming up, because you may meet the same people coming down.
Exactly. I love that. I want to play that other one from your
I sent you a
site.
link to a YouTube that I did from Birdland back when photographs came out. Did you get it for Cinnamon and Clove?
Let's see. Did you, this was in my email?
Yeah, I just sent it to you.
Okay, let me see.
Because that's an up tempo. I'd rather, and Mark Winkler, if Mark Winkler's on this call, he likes that lyric. He always says that's one of the Bergman's more hallucinogenic lyrics, and I agree.
Did you send it
I sent it to your Earthlink, yeah,
a few minutes ago?
a while ago, yeah. We've been chatting for over an hour.
Oh, so you sent it a ways back. Let me just.
I sent it about 3:07.
Oh,
It's
cinnamon.
called More YouTube Cinnamon and Clove.
Okay, I got it.
Click on.
Got it. Nice dress.
Oh, that record release, that was such a wonderful concert. It was on Ida Lupino's birthday.
Oh yeah, you look so beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm kidding.
Moonlight warms the silver sands. A seabird sails across a cove. Water's crystal in your hands. The air is cinnamon and clove. The depot's easy as you please. From every lemon yellow morning through velvet evening with breezes singing a song of cinnamon and clove. The air is cinnamon and clove. Seductive cinnamon and clove. So come to my arms, I long for your kiss. The taste of the sea, salty sweet upon your lips. There's a love to be made on nights such as this. And time is but sand sifting through our fingertips. The moon is like a tangerine, adrift upon a sea of lights. World where nothing comes between those salty days and sultry nights, where every slice of life and love has just the perfect combination. A touch of sweetness, a pinch of sadness, a touch of cinnamon and clove. The air is cinnamon and clove. Seductive cinnamon and clove.
Who is the band, Mary?
John DiMartino on piano, Ed Howard on bass. I think it was Vince Cherico on drums, and Joel Fromm on soprano saxophone.
Yeah. I've been hearing about him a lot lately.
Oh my God, the best.
This was the same pianist that you worked at the Soapbox with, right?
Yes, yes.
So come to my arms, I long for your kiss. The taste of the sea, salty sweet upon your lips. There's a love to be made on nights such as this. And time is but sand sifting through our fingertips. The moon is like a tangerine, adrift upon a sea of lights. World where nothing comes between the salty days and sultry nights, where every slice of life and love is just a perfect combination. A cup of sweetness, a pinch of sadness, a touch of cinnamon and clove. The air is cinnamon and clove, seductive cinnamon and clove, seductive cinnamon and clove. The air is 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 cinnamon and clove.
That's great. Very
It
nice.
was a wonderful band. Oh my God. That was a terrific night. It really was. And they take good care of you at Birdland. They really do. Johnny Valenti runs an incredible show. And no, it was a good night. And that dress, oh my God, I've forgotten about that dress.
Gorgeous.
That was a great thrift shop find.
Wow.
And yeah, every now and then you get lucky. But and also the night of that release was Ida Lupino's birthday. So my spirit animal.
Well, your singing is so beautiful, and you're in tune. And do you work at it? Do you work?
Yes. Well, I mean, I have the same voice teacher that I've had for. We realized that it's been decades that we've worked together. A woman named Norma Garbo, and I mean, it's a muscle, right? You know,
Yeah.
it's if you, and also, I mean, as you get older, I think I read an interview with Gladys Knight where she says she does a lot more work on her technique as an older singer than she ever had to as a younger singer. And that makes sense because, you know, things happen to your body as you get older.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to just take good care.
Yeah.
So that was a fun night. That was a fun Photographs was like a memory piece. And I love doing Cinnamon and Clove. That was part of, I started doing that in the middle of winter. Because I don't know about you, I suffer from terrible seasonal depression. And by, you know, midwinter, I'm just, in New York, I'm a nut because I'm just depressed and fat, and, you know, light deprived. And couple of times I've come to LA to perform with Mark, and I come off the plane and I'm pale. I feel like a vampire. And it's just a very different existence to come from midwinter New York City to Los Angeles.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I like doing a lot of sort of tropical. I think I did a whole show called Moon and Sand, you know, to sort of take me out of my head into warmer places.
Yeah. Yes, Roland, I'm sure that her show can be accessed nationwide, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can go to WFDU.FM and they have an HD2 channel. You go to HD2 and it's Sundays at 3:00 Eastern time. You can go to mixcloud.com. I load the show the day after and then it's there forever. There's also a stream rewind link that I usually post right afterwards that you can listen to for 2 weeks through the FDU station. So yes, you can, I on a good day, I've had people from the West Coast, I've had people from Canada, I've had people from England, I've had people from Texas, which is really, it's just a pleasure. There's just a world of talent out there and always my pleasure to present them and discover them and share them.
Absolutely. And I want to make one more comment from Joyce Glasgow. Are you familiar with Joyce? Yeah. She said, "You are such a sensuous singer and really brings forth the meanings and feelings in the lyrics beautifully portrayed."
Wow. That's awful nice.
FDU is
Fairleigh Dickinson University. It is a college in Teaneck, New Jersey.
okay. That's what Roland asked. Well, Mary, it's been 2 hours.
Wow.
We really didn't talk specifically about your life, but really we got a lot of who you are and your perspective and different parts of what happened along the way. So, and that's the kind of conversations I really like. I like to talk about, the different things in life that we're involved with and perspectives,
Well, it's also been a time of not performing. And it's been a time of other things, like I said, it's been, I was doing the radio show before the pandemic hit, but it became it became something more to get back on the air and continue to broadcast, not just for me, but for, the genre in general,
Yeah.
to broadcast from New York City,
Yeah.
the anarchist jurisdiction, to, and in coming back, my latest project is I pretty much call it the Rainbow Project because there's a Melba Liston tune that I found that I love, that Abby Lincoln has recorded a couple of times. The first time it was like with a children's choir, so it was easy to miss. But then she did it as a duo in a live performance where I just went, wow, that's something I want to revisit. And pretty much it's got a lyric of sort of, about a rainbow and the storm is cleared and it's sort of gospel in flavor, but I liked it because it was full of promise about the future. And everybody is sort of coming where there is no going back.
Yeah.
It's
moving
just
forward.
moving forward. And where are we now? And for a lot of people that has shifted.
Yeah.
So it's yet to be discovered. I loved paring down, working with just piano and violin. Sarah Caswell, I cannot say enough wonderful things about her. I have wanted to work with her since Rosanna Vitro's wonderful Claire Fisher project.
Yeah.
And she was another one. I heard her live in a tiny room at APAP. And I was just like, I'm a huge fan of jazz violin. Jenny Scheinman, Regina Carter.
Yeah.
I was an old John Luke Ponte person.
Uh-huh.
So I and Stefano Grappelli. I just love jazz violin as a instrument. So
yeah. Well, thanks, Mary.
Thanks for everything you do, Cathy. I admire so much your passion and your drive and, bringing all these wonderful conversations and making them available around the country. It's a wonderful thing. And again, the fact that it's more than just, you and what you do, but it's what your service, I guess is the word. So I applaud you.
Well, I guess we're sisters in that. So I think you're amazing for having done all that you've done for so long. And I know I'm not the only one who appreciates it.
I like it. It keeps me generous.
Yeah.
I much prefer being excited by people's work rather than going,
Yeah.
how did they get that? Or they got this. It's like, it keeps me excited about what people are doing. And there's a lot of interesting stuff out there.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Yeah, I love that too. It's a beautiful aspect. I'm going to tell the people who's coming on in the next few days, so you can either listen or you could say goodbye, whichever you would like.
Oh, I love listening to you talk.
Oh, good. She loves listening to me talk. Did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? Okay. Thank you for being here, everybody. Tanya and Gary and Mark and everybody else, Dan, and Roland and everybody else. So Thursday through Sunday, I'm going to be doing archives. And so tomorrow is Gary Fukushima, who's, I think, kind of an underknown genius piano player here in LA, who I've worked with a lot and recorded with. And he's a wonderful person, great musician, great teacher, Gary Fukushima. And then Friday, an arranger, a composer and arranger in that area of business, named Brian McNellis. Saturday, you should probably know Frank Amsalem. Do you know him? Yeah. Great musician from New York, right? He's in New York, right?
I think so.
I think he is. And then Sunday, interestingly enough, because Sunday is Jay Clayton's brunch here in LA at Vitello's, she is my archived guest. And I didn't plan that out. It just happened that way. For those of you in LA, there's a few things that are happening. One is Jay's brunch on Sunday, 12 to 1:30 at Feinstein's or Vitello's in Studio City. And Jay is also doing a workshop on Saturday here, 11:30 to 2:30. If you're interested in a workshop, let me know. You can find me through my website. And she's also taking a few private students here in LA. Monday night at Catalina's is Mondavid's birthday concert. And it's a wonderful night, Nano Cafe in Sierra Madre. Saturday, Admara Ruiz, the great pianist, is going to be playing at a home venue in Highland Park, and I'm going to be kind of bringing that up on my Facebook site again, kind of up from the bottom. And also Saturday, if you're into this, Rosanna and Marion Cowings are going to be at Vitello's. Excuse me for my cough. This is an allergy type of cough for those of you who know me. And then I'll just say next week, the live musicians, Monday through Wednesday, are guitarist Doug McDonald, who's a great straight ahead player.
Yeah.
John Novello is on Tuesday, who's a really interesting player. He's more kind of fusion oriented, and he had a group for a long time called Niacin with with Billy Sheehan and Dennis Chambers on drums. Really interesting blend of people. So anyway, he's a guy who's not in my common everyday jazz world, but we're old friends. And then Wednesday, one of the best jazz clarinetists ever, not just alive now, but just ever, John Tegmeyer. I don't know if you know him, Mary, but he's from LA, and he is really an incredible clarinetist, really incredible. So anyway, that's what's happening around here lately. And I hope I see you guys soon, and thank you for coming. And thank you so much, Mary Foster Conklin. I love you. And it was just such a pleasure, talking to you more and really getting more of a relationship between us and realizing how sisterly we are.
I want to come to LA. I miss it terribly, and I look forward to that time.
Yeah.
You know, and our I have a feeling our paths will cross again in person very soon. So
Cool. Well, I hope so. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Bye, hon.
Take care.
Bye,